My name is Lauren Hayes. I am 26 years old. If you are watching this from somewhere quiet with a cup of coffee in hand, I appreciate you being here. Let me know in the comments. If you have ever felt like the one person in the family who existed only to keep everyone else comfortable. Hit like if you finally chose detachment over endless giving. I sat alone in the glass-walled conference room of our family property management firm, high above the pine-covered slopes of the Lake Tahoe enclave. Snow dusted the evergreens outside, and the private docks on the lake below gleamed under thin winter light. This was supposed to be a routine asset review meeting. My mother had insisted on it personally. She entered first her tailored wool coat, still carrying the crisp mountain air. She placed a thick folder on the table without greeting me. "You need to approve this capital transfer immediately." My mother said, her voice even and controlled. "The firm requires additional liquidity for the upcoming phase. Your sister has prepared the projections, and we expect your cooperation." I opened the folder. The documents outlined shifting a significant portion of my equity stake into accounts managed primarily by my brother. The language was dense, but the intent was clear. My 25% ownership, built through years of meticulous audits and client negotiations in this competitive enclave, would effectively become collateral for expansions my mother had greenlit. No independent valuation, no discussion of risks. I kept my expression neutral. "I will not approve this." Her eyes met mine steadily, betraying no surprise. She had expected resistance, but assumed it would fold under pressure. My sister stepped into the room moments later, tablet in hand, followed by my father. My sister positioned herself beside my mother, reviewing notes, as if this were a standard briefing. "Lauren, this is not the time for hesitation," my sister said smoothly. "The enclave investors are watching our portfolio closely. Delaying affects all of us." The demand felt calculated. My mother had chosen this professional setting surrounded by the symbols of our shared business success to make refusal look like disloyalty to the family enterprise. I had suspected irregularities for months. Small diversions in reserve funds, unexplained personal draws. But this meeting crystallized the pattern. My mother directed the pressure. My sister supplied the supporting figures that masked the gaps. My brother benefited, quietly expanding his private consulting ventures on the side using firm resources. I slid the folder back across the polished surface. "Show me the full ledger reconciliation first. There are discrepancies in the reserve accounts exceeding $200,000. Silence settled over the room. My mother did not raise her voice. She simply leaned back, maintaining that detached composure she wore like armor in business circles. "Those are operational adjustments. Your sister can walk you through them later. Right now, the priority is securing the next development tranche." My father observed without intervening, his presence lending quiet weight to their united front. I excused myself from the meeting shortly after citing a prior client call. As I drove back to my condo overlooking the lake, the cold mountain air through the cracked window matched the detachment I felt. I had learned over years that emotional reactions only gave them more leverage. That evening, my sister called. "Mom is disappointed with how you handled the meeting. She says your lack of support is risking the reputation we have built here in the enclave. Your brother needs the flexibility to move forward on his projects. We are all in this together." I listened without interrupting, then ended the call politely. No raised voices, no accusations. Just a quiet refusal to engage further. The following week brought more pressure through indirect channels. Mutual friends in the Tahoe business network began reaching out. One longtime acquaintance from the property association met me for coffee at a neutral lakeside cafe. "Your mother mentioned some tension around the firm expansion. She hopes you will step up for the family. It would look better for everyone if things stayed aligned." The social circle was shifting. Comments in group chats and at local events carried subtle undertones about stability and loyalty. My mother excelled at framing the narrative without direct confrontation. She positioned herself as the steady leader, keeping the family enterprise intact while painting my caution as disruptive. I continued my independent consulting work, reviewing distressed assets for high net worth clients across the enclave. One of those clients, Allison Brooks, had become a trusted sounding board. She was an experienced auditor I had collaborated with on several projects. During a working lunch, I shared limited details about the family firm discrepancies. Allison listened carefully. I can run some discreet checks if you provide access within legal bounds. Patterns like this rarely stay hidden. I appreciated her pragmatism. No drama, just clear-eyed analysis. 2 weeks after the initial meeting, my mother scheduled another session at the firm offices. This time, my brother joined via video from his latest site visit. My mother opened by reiterating the transfer request. My sister presented updated spreadsheets that still glossed over the reserve shortfalls. I remained detached. I've reviewed the documents independently. The transfers would expose my stake to liabilities from my brother's side ventures. I decline. My mother's response stayed measured. This decision reflects poorly on your commitment to the family legacy here in Tahoe. Your sister and I have invested years maintaining our standing. Your sister agrees this is the responsible path. My sister nodded in support, adding details about investor expectations. The conversation circled without escalation. They applied steady cold pressure rather than open conflict. I ended the meeting by stating I would consider formal separation of my interests if the discrepancies were not addressed. Later that afternoon, Allison Brooks stopped by my condo with unexpected materials. While digitizing some older firm archives for a related client, I came across these. Forgotten diary pages from your father's files, along with an old board call recording. They surfaced during the process. You should review them privately. I thanked her and waited until evening. The pages in my mother's handwriting outlined long-term plans to consolidate control under my brother by gradually shifting exposure away from him. The recording captured my mother instructing my sister to adjust entries ahead of my reviews. It confirmed the core betrayal. My mother had orchestrated the financial maneuvers. My sister enabled them. My brother built his secret side empire on the diverted resources. I sat by the window overlooking the dark lake, processing the evidence with cold clarity. This was not a recent lapse. It was a sustained pattern. The next morning, I contacted Victor Lang, a corporate lawyer Allison had recommended for sensitive matters. He reviewed the materials remotely. This establishes a clear trail of directed misuse. We can protect your position and initiate appropriate disclosures within the firm's structure. I instructed him to prepare the necessary filings while I maintained my detached stance. No public accusations yet, just strategic steps. Friends who had initially echoed my mother's concerns began receiving more of the narrative from her side. One mutual contact canceled a planned collaboration, citing family dynamics affecting professional neutrality. The isolation felt deliberate engineered through quiet conversations in the enclave's tight social and business circles. My sister reached out again via message. Mom believes you are isolating yourself unnecessarily. We can resolve this internally if you reconsider the transfer. I did not reply immediately. The evidence had shifted my understanding entirely. The demands were not about collective success. They were about preserving my mother's control and my brother's expansion at my expense. As regulatory notices began circulating internally at the firm, the pressure intensified. My mother called me directly for the first time in weeks. Her tone remained controlled. Your actions are creating unnecessary complications. The enclave community values stability. Your sister and I expect you to align for the greater good. I responded briefly. I have documentation. The pattern is clear. I will not absorb the risks. The call ended without resolution. I felt no anger, only the quiet resolve of someone who had finally seen the full picture. Over the next few days, the enclave seemed smaller, the mountain air heavier with unspoken expectations. I focused on my independent consulting work, reviewing portfolios for clients who valued discretion over family loyalty. Allison Brooks checked in via a secure message confirming she had forwarded the relevant archive materials to Victor Lang under strict confidentiality. "This is solid," she wrote. "The recording and diary entries create a clear chain of direction from the top." Her support felt steady, professional, without any emotional entanglement. My mother did not call again immediately. Instead, the pressure came through channels she knew would reach me. My sister sent a detailed email outlining the supposed benefits of the equity transfer copied to several key firm advisors. The language was polished, emphasizing family unity and enclave reputation. Attached were revised projections that still conveniently omitted the full extent of the reserve shortfalls. I forwarded everything to Victor without comment. A week later, Victor Lang arranged a private meeting at his office in a quiet building overlooking the lake. He was a sharp, no-nonsense attorney, in his early 50s, specializing in corporate governance disputes in high-value mountain communities. "The diary pages and that board recording are particularly damaging," he said, sliding printouts across his desk. "They show your mother explicitly directing adjustments to shield your brother's activities. Your sister executed them. This is not casual mismanagement. It is coordinated." I listened as he outlined the options. We could pursue an internal separation agreement, isolating my stake from the broader firm liabilities. Or we could allow the discrepancies to trigger a formal review by the Enclave's Business Oversight Board. I chose the measured path. Initiate the separation process. Keep it contained for now. My voice stayed level, detached from any desire for dramatic confrontation. The response from my mother came swiftly but still controlled. She requested another meeting at the firm conference room, this time with my father and my sister present. When I arrived, the snow outside had thickened, muting the usual views of the pine slopes. My mother sat at the head of the table, her posture straight. "This separation filing you initiated creates complications for everyone." She stated her tone, carrying that familiar cold authority. "The investors are already asking questions. Your sister has spent considerable time reassuring them that the family remains aligned." My sister nodded beside her, adding that several longtime friends in the community had expressed concern about the disruption. My father remained mostly silent, offering occasional affirmations that lent weight to their position. I kept my hands folded on the table. "The documentation I have reviewed indicates the disruptions originated elsewhere. The diverted funds supported my brother's private projects. I will not absorb those liabilities." My mother leaned forward slightly. "You are choosing to undermine what we have all built here. Your sister and I have maintained the firm's standing for years. Your refusal risks isolating you from the network that matters in this enclave." The words were not shouted. They were delivered with precise detachment, the same way she handled difficult client negotiations. My sister reinforced the point, mentioning how mutual acquaintances had begun distancing themselves from collaborations involving me. The social fallout spread quietly. A planned networking dinner at a lakeside resort was suddenly rescheduled without me. One friend from the property association left a voicemail saying she hoped I would resolve things with my mother soon as the community preferred stability. The isolation was effective because my mother had spent decades cultivating those relationships. Friends who had known us for years found it easier to side with the established family narrative. Allison Brooks became an unexpected anchor during this period. She joined me for a walk along a cleared trail near the lake one afternoon. "I have seen this pattern before in other family-run operations," she said. "The one who questions the books becomes the problem, but the recording changes things. It is direct evidence." Her perspective helped me maintain clarity without getting drawn into emotional spirals. Victor Lang updated me a few days later. The internal separation documents were progressing, but my mother's team had filed counter-objections claiming I was acting against collective interests. "They are trying to tie your stake to ongoing firm obligations," he explained. "The diary pages will counter that effectively if it escalates." The mid-story twist deepened when Victor shared an enhanced version of the old board recording Allison had uncovered. In it, my mother could be heard clearly instructing my sister on how to reclassify certain transfers as development support while directing funds toward my brother's undisclosed ventures. The secret empire my brother had built involved several off-book property deals in the Tahoe area, using firm credit lines without full disclosure. My mother had not only known, but actively facilitated it to maintain the image of a thriving family enterprise. I reviewed the enhanced audio in my condo that evening. The detached tone in my mother's voice on the recording mirrored the one she used in our meetings. No heat, just calculated direction. It confirmed everything. My sister had been her primary instrument adjusting records to keep the facade intact. My brother operated in the background, expanding his interests, while the rest of us were expected to provide cover. My sister tried reaching out personally the following weekend. We met at a neutral coffee spot in the enclave village, away from the firm offices. She arrived looking composed, her coat matching the winter landscape. "Mom is worried about the direction this is taking," she said. "She believes you are overreacting to normal business adjustments. Your brother's projects benefit the whole family long term. Can we find a way to move forward without external involvement?" I stirred my coffee slowly. The recording and diary entries show more than adjustments. They show direction and concealment. I have protected my position. The separation will proceed. Her expression remained even, but I noticed the slight shift in her posture. "This will affect how people see us here. Friends are already choosing sides. Mom has always tried to keep things stable for all of us." The implication was clear. Continued resistance meant further social exile within the tight-knit Tahoe community. I ended the conversation without agreement. The cold mountain drive back to my place gave me time to reflect. The betrayal felt complete, yet I experienced no urge to lash out. Detachment had become my strongest tool. As the formal review process advanced, regulatory notices began appearing within the firm. My mother called again, her voice still controlled, but carrying an edge of finality. "Your filings are forcing us to take protective measures. Your sister and I have spoken with advisors. If you continue, the consequences will extend beyond the business." My father had apparently endorsed the stance, though he did not speak directly. Friends who had sided with my mother grew more vocal in private conversations. One mutual contact told me over the phone that my mother had framed the situation as me abandoning family responsibilities at a critical time for the enclave's development projects. The narrative spread efficiently through their established circles. Victor Lang and Allison Brooks coordinated on the next steps. "We have enough to secure an independent valuation and freeze exposure," Victor said during a call. "The evidence from the archives shifts the burden significantly." Allison added her assessment that the secret financial maneuvers by my brother had created vulnerabilities that could trigger broader audits, if not contained. I approved the filings. The pressure from my mother intensified through indirect channels. My sister sent another message highlighting potential damage to shared professional reputations. "Mom expects alignment," it read. "We have always resolved things internally." But the old recording and diary pages had already changed the terrain. What my mother had built as a private system of control was now exposed within the professional framework of the firm. I maintained my cold detachment, responding only through legal channels. No emotional appeals, no attempts to repair what had never truly been mutual. The enclave winter continued, snow falling steadily on the pines as the conflict moved toward open confrontation. Friends continued to distance themselves, choosing the familiar stability my mother represented. My brother remained largely silent, letting my mother and sister handle the front lines while his secret ventures faced increasing scrutiny. The conference room felt colder than usual when I arrived for the decisive meeting. Snow had piled against the large windows overnight, muting the lake view to a soft gray. My mother sat at the head of the table again, flanked by my sister and my father. My brother joined on the large screen from one of his off-site locations. The atmosphere carried that same controlled tension they preferred. No raised voices, just the quiet weight of expectation. My mother opened without preamble. Your continued filings are damaging the firm's position within the enclave. Investors have expressed concerns. Your sister and I have worked to contain the narrative, but your actions leave us no choice but to formalize a response. My sister slid a new set of documents across the table. We propose a full release of your stake in exchange for cooperation on the public messaging. The community needs to see unity. Her tone matched my mother's detached professional, as if this were simply another transaction. My father nodded, once his silence always the quiet endorsement. On screen, my brother watched, without speaking, his expression carefully neutral. I did not touch the papers. Instead, I placed my own folder on the table. I have reviewed the archive materials. The old board recording and diary pages make the pattern unmistakable. You directed the adjustments. My sister executed them. The diverted funds built my brother's private holdings. I will not release anything under those terms. The room stayed silent for a long beat. My mother's face remained composed, but I saw the slight narrowing of her eyes. Those materials are internal and taken out of context. Bringing them forward would only harm the family reputation we have all maintained here. My sister added that several key friends in the Tahoe network had already voiced their preference for a quiet resolution, implying my resistance was the true disruption. I kept my voice steady and detached. The recording captures you instructing the reclassifications. The diary pages outline the long-term plan to shield my brother's activities. This is not context. This is direction. Victor Lang had prepared me well for this moment. He attended the meeting remotely and interjected calmly. The documentation supports an independent separation. Any attempt to tie your interests to unresolved liabilities will face formal challenge. His presence as an external voice shifted the dynamic slightly. My mother acknowledged him with a brief nod, but directed her response to me. "You are forcing a separation that isolates you from the enclave's core network," she said. "Lifelong relationships built over decades in this community will not survive divided loyalties. Your sister and I have spoken with many who expect better alignment." The social cost became clearer in the following days. Friends I had known since establishing my consulting practice in the Tahoe area began pulling back. One couple who had hosted joint events with our family sent a brief message citing neutrality in family business matters. Another longtime contact in the property association canceled a standing collaboration, mentioning conversations with my mother about maintaining stability. The isolation spread through quiet lunches and enclave social circles, where my mother's narrative held sway. Lifelong friendships, carefully cultivated over years, dissolved under the pressure of perceived disloyalty. I observed it all with cold detachment. No attempts to defend myself. No emotional outreach. The boundaries I had set created space I had never allowed myself before. Allison Brooks proved instrumental in the final stretch. During a private review session at her office, she revealed the full extent of her quiet assistance. When I found the diary pages and recording in the archives, I made secure copies immediately. I also flagged the patterns to Victor without involving firm channels. Your mother's system relied on everyone looking the other way. I chose not to. Her support had been strategic and silent, the kind of alliance built on professional respect rather than family obligation. Victor Lang coordinated the final filings. The Enclave Business Oversight Board initiated a review based on the evidence. Notices went out regarding the discrepancies in reserve accounts and the off-book transfers tied to my brother's ventures. My mother's carefully maintained image of the unified family enterprise began to fracture under official scrutiny. The consequences unfolded methodically. My brother's secret empire built on diverted resources faced liens and audits. His private projects stalled as credit lines froze. My sister found her role in the adjustments highlighted in internal reports, affecting her standing with key advisors. My mother, as the directing force, received formal inquiries from the association about governance practices. The family firm's reputation in the Tahoe enclave suffered as word spread through professional channels. Friends who had sided with her withdrew further, their lifelong social ties strained by the emerging financial details. I completed the separation of my stake. The equity I had earned converted into independent capital free from their liabilities. No dramatic public scenes, no final confrontations filled with accusations. I simply finalized the documents and stepped away. Weeks passed in the quiet rhythm of mountain winter. I received no further direct outreach from my mother. My sister sent one last message, expressing disappointment in my choices, but I did not respond. My brother remained silent. The no contact felt complete and necessary. There was no regret in the detachment. The boundaries I had drawn created genuine freedom. Family is not ownership. It does not grant the right to use one person as collateral for another's ambitions. I expanded my consulting practice, taking on clients who valued clear structures and transparency. Allison Brooks became a regular collaborator on larger reviews. Victor Lang handled ongoing compliance matters. The new professional circle felt solid because it rested on mutual respect rather than obligation. One clear afternoon, I stood on the deck of my condo overlooking the lake. The snow had begun to melt in patches, revealing the deep blue water beneath. The enclave continued its quiet rhythm below, but I no longer measured my place within it by my mother's expectations. The quiet empowerment settled deep. I had protected my future by refusing to fund their image. The karma came not through revenge, but through natural consequences of their own choices. Thank you for listening to my story. How much disrespect do you tolerate before you choose yourself? Let me know in the comments below.